Horrific and deadly interstate pileup. A semi speeding along the side of the road, plowing into stop traffic. More than 24 cars and trucks caught in the fiery wreck.
A major interstate tonight still partly shut down after a rush hour hellscape triggered by the crash of an out-of-control tractor-trailer.
When an avoidable tragedy occurs, it's the job of the attorneys on both sides of the wreckage to understand what happened, to understand and uncover all the information to be found on the incident, not only at the scene, but all the trails leading up to it. In our interconnected world, how does e-discovery play into a case like the trucking accident at the top of the show? Well, if it involves cell phone towers, social media, traffic cameras, open source intelligence, online, chat rooms, the Internet of Things, emails, texts, sensors, then you can be sure digital forensics and e-discovery are not just a future concern, but they're here and ubiquitous. But do the lawyers representing and searching for the truth know how to walk in this digital forest of mirrors? That's what we're talking about today on Lawsome. E-discovery, data, and the digital law firm. Ready? Let's roll.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for lawyers that can hold its breath longer than you can. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in legal marketing and law firm development. I am Jake Triple Dog Dare Sanders, and joining me today, as always, is Paul Wanna Make It Interesting Julius. Paul, how many marshmallows do you think you can eat? Are they the small ones or the big ones? It's just a giant marshmallow?
I was just thinking that, like, is this mini marshmallows? I'm going to go with standard size marshmallows. In one sitting,
I'm thinking about them.
20.
Is that a lot?
You want to find out? You want to make it interesting?
Well, I triple dog dare you to do it. Anyway, let's focus and tell people what's coming up on the show.
All right. On the show, we're going to talk about e-discovery, privacy, and tech with an article from Above the Law. And we chat with digital forensic mastermind Scott Green about how to find all the good stuff on the internet. And then we do a little research of our own on our guest with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The links today that are simmering away on the Hot Take Buffet are from Above the Law, written by the chef himself, Bob Ambrogi. We've had him on the show. He's amazing. I'll start with this kind of, it's basically a consolidation of what the new ethics opinion that misses the mark on tech competence is written in May. I'll start with the top. It says, Louisiana issued some ethics opinion on tech competency for their lawyers, but it misses the mark. The opinion presumes that using technology in law practice is optional, and that a lawyer must be competent in technology only if the lawyer chooses to use technology. And so Ambrogi was responding to a piece that Nicole Black had made on her blog about the same loophole here, which is you're not sure where the tech begins and ends, and where your duty to it and fealty to the competence, begins and ends. So, my hot take is that we love Bob. He's right on the money that it misses the mark, and it's confusing because lawyers don't know where those things intersect. And we actually have a quote from him. We actually have a quote from Ambrogi himself on the topic. He's on our show, and he had this to say about tech competency. Ambrogi.
Technology competence. I've written a lot about technology competence. I'm sitting here right now preparing for a presentation I'm going to give next week at a conference on technology competence for lawyers. That kind of both encompasses knowing how to work with the machines and knowing when not to work with the machines. It is no longer, I think, optional for lawyers to understand the technology, have at least a rudimentary or basic understanding of the technology that's available to them to use in their practices, but also that their clients are using in their day-to-day life, whether it's social media or something more sophisticated with a larger client, what kind of data preservation processes they have in place or whatever else it might be.
And so, just like Jared Correa, Bob Ambrogi, and other people we've had on the show, they're talking about tech competence, how it's important. I like this article because it pairs nicely with the interview later with Scott, because if you don't know about the tech that your client may be using, then when it comes time to e-discovery, you won't know how to properly trace steps or look deeper into the facts. And he has a really interesting, compelling case about a trucking accident that he was working on and reverse engineering the steps through existing tech and e-discovery. It's pretty fascinating stuff. So I like this piece, Bob Ambrogi. I like Nicole Black. I think it's a solid win. Paul, where you at?
Totally with you. I agree with everything you said about Nicole and Bob. I like one thing that kind of rung my bell a little bit after talking to Scott and after reading this article. I never really thought about it. I always think of legal tech as like case management software, or AI for searching through, case history and stuff like that. Right. But really, there's a larger sort of baseline of competence here that I never really thought. And it's just honestly, it's just like daily life now. But if you think about it, people are like, I'm not on Facebook. I don't do LinkedIn. I don't have, there's some lawyers who are like, I don't even have a website.
Yeah. Right.
And I think the one thing that Bob wrote in his article that really stuck out to me was he said the technology that affects the practice of law is not just the technology used by lawyers. It is also the technology used by clients. So whether the lawyers that's conducting discovery, handling a divorce, drafting a licensing agreement, or representing a criminal defendant, the client's use of technology is likely to be implicated.
Right.
So, if you're not, and again, Scott has a great example later with that trucking case.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's really where these kind of things sort of synthesize for me is that, if you don't understand how to go find tweets or old Facebook posts, or if you don't know what Snapchat is, or you can't figure out how to get some of this stuff, you're at a real disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, we talk a little bit about privacy with that too. What you have to be ethical about or not,
right.
What's legit, not, but I think it's just part of life now. And I don't know that it even should be called tech. Like learning
right.
how to search through, Facebook posts, that's not tech.
That's
what I'm
just
saying?
like standard of care kind of.
It should be standard operating procedure,
Well, it's hard to say. In our lifetime, it's gone from Pelican Brief, I'm meeting you in the garage to get the secret stuff, to
we still do that sometimes. Depends
that's probably the best way to do it, guys. We're not telling you how to do it. I'm just saying I'm in the garage now
with a case full of stuff.
Papers. Mm-hmm. And microfiche.
We're calling it microfiche.
Well, you know what I'm saying? But it's gone from that to it could be on a thumb drive as small as this. People aren't sure of how tech shows up or where it comes from or what it is. Like WeWork, they said they were a tech company, but they were just a rental company. People are using the word tech just sort of like this shield. And behind that, I can't see what it is, but I have to have it. And the tech competency that's being passed in 38 something states already, 39, they have to be very specific about what they say. Louisiana missed it here. Nicole mentioned it first, and I think we'll just end with her words because then we can pass it off to Scott, who says the same thing that is echoed here, is that education is the problem. You have to be educated about this stuff. And so Paul, you and me are way beyond this, man. We've been called insufferable nerds. Like we know too much. but there is something that we can pass on, and it's this simplicity. And if it is the professional associations that are helping lawyers find out what they're going to be held to account for in regards to tech competency, then that needs to be straight language, and it needs to be, held to the fire like these critics, Nicole and Bob, are doing. So I'll end with her phrases, and then we'll go into the interview. In other words, the consensus regarding technology competence is not that lawyers must be competent only if they choose to use technology. Instead, the consensus is that in 2019, lawyers must understand technology so that they can make educated decisions regarding whether and how to use it in their practices. This is an important distinction, since in 2019, it's impossible for lawyers to practice law without encountering and thus necessarily gaining an understanding of technology in one form or another. And the failure of lawyers to understand how a given technology works and how it will affect their clients' matters is a violation of the duty of competence at best and malpractice at worst.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Any lawyer looking to grow their business online can generate more leads from their website by hiring Consultwebs. After working with lawyers exclusively since 1999, we've tested thousands of web designs and marketing strategies, so we know what flips and what flops. For more information, visit www.consultwebs.com today.
And now, a lawsome interview.
Scott Green is the Senior Technology Examiner at Evidence Solutions, a premier forensics company that provides consulting, industry expert witness, and testimony services. Scott has spoken across the country at legal seminars on a variety of topics, including e-discovery, data security, and it's those topics and his love of all things digital that has brought him to the show today. Scott, welcome to Lawsome.
Oh, man, that's a lawsome introduction, too. I like it.
Well,
can I reuse it?
Yes, yours. That is yours for repurposing. Yeah. It's all true and it's all you. But so let's unpack that. Explain Evidence Solution. What's the main focus for the company and how does it help lawyers and how do you fit in there?
So Evidence Solutions is a group of forensic experts, and we actually come from a wide variety of backgrounds. I personally am a digital forensics expert, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. But in addition to just the digital side, I have some trucking standard of care experts. I have some police standard of care experts. I have an accident reconstructionist. I have a guy who does sports and fitness expert and some other expertises, along with, well, believe it or not, Greek fraternities get sued. And so he's an expert on how things should be handled by a Greek fraternity.
Interesting.
Turning back to what I do, I'm a digital forensics expert. I look at all kinds of data, and it ranges from things like point-of-sale systems in restaurants and bars to the black boxes that come out of cars and trucks, to cell phones. We do 30 to 40 cell phones a year, usually related to somebody being struck by a car or run over by a truck. I do electronic medical records where doctors are falsifying things or not. I work both sides, and I can prove either they're falsifying records in the electronic medical record when something goes bad or they're not. And so it's a wide variety of things. We live in the digital age, and we're leaving footprints and trails behind us as we traverse our day, and that's what I examine.
Mm. So you have that focus on digital forensics and e-discovery, and can you share some generalizations you've learned from the talks on e-discovery? It seems like it's a word that's thrown around and maybe a little too general, but are there certain facets of this world of digital forensics and e-discovery that you think lawyers are kind of missing the boat perennially on?
So I think there are. I think the biggest thing that I've learned working with attorneys on e-discovery and digital forensics is that they need to hire somebody early to just consult with somebody about what's available in the marketplace. There are just times when they miss things. Think you know all about digital forensics and got trucking attorneys who I do a lot of trucking work, and a lot of trucking attorneys say, well, I really know digital forensics as it relates to trucks because I do that all day long. And I said, well, yeah, that's probably true, and you may, but have you considered this? And they said, no, we hadn't considered that. And that's where the education piece comes in. And that's one of the reasons why I do a lot of speaking around the country is I love sharing what I do so that attorneys can practice better in their field of endeavor. And so digital, not even digital forensics, but e-discovery is a very broad topic. And it really needs to be examined when you do, especially in big cases. You know, it's not for the average car crash or something like that, red car, blue car, but it's certainly in big cases. Everybody needs to get a feel for what the potential is for digital evidence.
And so you're saying that they typically don't get the help early, and they find themselves maybe on the other side of an argument that they need to like walk back from, or so you think the problem is that they ask for help too late.
Yeah, that happens all too often. They ask for help too late.
So
and
you get the call late at night and you show up in the middle of their strategy. Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah, and sometimes data doesn't hang around forever. There are a lot of things that do hang around forever. There is data that is around forever, but people can destroy data too. And so by the time I get involved, sometimes the data's gone, and they're scratching their head saying, "Wow, I wish I'd have called you a little bit earlier in this deal."
Yeah,
man. So talking about data, something I'm deeply involved in with regards to the news and whatnot is data privacy. So privacy and data hacks in the law firm, like what are your thoughts on this, and what kind of responsibilities or safeguards do you feel that lawyers have to have in place at their firms? And then as an add-on to that, if you got any horror stories you can share, we'd love to hear them.
So data security in law firms should be, it's vital. If you have a big law firm where data gets stolen about cases or clients, that could be very detrimental to the firm. It can be very detrimental to a single case. If you have your case strategy put down in digital forum, in a discussion forum inside the firm, and that gets to the other side, that can be pretty detrimental to your case, because now the other side's got your strategy. They know who you're going to call as witnesses. They know all the parts and pieces, some of which they're going to know anyway through normal discovery, but they're going to get this strategy and the information that is possibly going to help them actually succeed and win. So digital security for law firms is vital to and should be paramount. And it's okay to have internal people help you with digital security. I think that's a fine thing. The larger law firms all have their internal IT department, and even some smaller law firms have an IT person. At the same time, it's a wise thing to have somebody who is a disinterested third party who can come in and say, look here, you missed this little piece, which is a security hole. And you should really understand what that is. The biggest factor, however, in digital security is education. I can't stress education enough for digital security. The more that people know about what's out there that can hurt them, phishing scams and spear phishing scams, that those types of things, and understanding what those are, and understanding that, I didn't ask for this document from this person. Why am I getting it? Should I just just ignore it? And the answer is probably, or call them up and say, did you send me a document? I get documents from law firms all the time, and they're really not genuine documents. They're fakes. So one place where that's, you wanted a horror story, there's a horror story out of Canada, actually. It's a lady who's working in the law firm. She's the accounting person in the law firm. And she gets an email notice saying, hey, there's a problem with your account. Of course, she clicks on the link. She goes to a website, and it looks just like her bank. She clicks on it, and she can't log in because her password's not working. And, of course, they don't know her password yet. So she can't log into the system, and she gets a phone call. And it's somebody who represents that they're with the bank and said, we see that you're having a problem. We'd like to help you. can you give us your username and password? We're happy to help you get in. And so she does that. She gives them the username and the password, which now they've got to use on the real website for the bank. And those hackers made off with six figures just because somebody wasn't paying attention. The lady was a little older and didn't quite know that the banks aren't going to call when there's a problem. And the set of hackers made off with six figures out of the trust account for that law firm.
And so education is the big factor. And so what I was thinking of, smart people are easy to fool. Everyone says, well, I'll never fall for it because I'm so smart. But because you were so smart, you have a very wide playing field for nonsense. And so can you kind of speak to some of that? Like, this isn't about stupid people getting taken. It's about context. Or can you kind of just unpack that thought?
Oh, sure. So it is about context. For the average user who has a Chase account, they're going to get an email that has links in it and things like that. The smarter hackers in the marketplace are going to look for the bigger fish. Mm-hmm. And they're going to learn more about that bigger fish. They're going to go to their Facebook page. They're going to go to their LinkedIn page. They're going to, gather information from the website of the law firm. And they're going to be very serious about the data that they have. They're going to know the person's dog's name and things like that. And so that social engineering piece happens very well at a lot of different levels. And when they're going after the big fish, the smarter person, that person's going to start to feel more comfortable because they have this background information and say, "Oh, of course you must know who I am."
Wow. So, and here's another thought I was thinking when you're talking about that. Would you get a funny email and then call them? Now, my counter argument is I don't have time to get on the phone, and a lot of young folks are scared of the phone. They don't want to talk. I would rather send a text. I would rather send an email. What's your thought there?
Well, sure. I don't see any problem with sending an email. It's reaching back out and say, did you really send me a file is really the key. Frequently when somebody hits reply, they should know, that's the other thing is to pay attention, right? If you hit reply and it's not going back to the person who sent it or who appears to have sent it because they've managed to change the reply to field to where the email actually goes when you reply, then they should know that it's a fake. And that's why it's back to education. Education is so important in this world for that.
Future law. Let's go into the future. Thinking about, lawyers today, they want a competitive edge. And there are so many experts. There are so many apps. There are so many marketing infrastructures and ecosystems and all this stuff. I mean, what does that mean to you? Like, what do you think lawyers should be focusing on digital and tech-wise that's going to give them an edge? Is it getting that expertise? Is it finding help? Do they need to learn how to code? Because a lot of people are really happy about that, and I'm wondering I don't know if that's for everybody, but what's your thought there, Scott?
I think there are two things that I could address in that. One is certainly get and hire and rely on experts who can help you with things that you don't know about. Almost every state in the union now has passed at the bar level or at whatever judicial oversight level of attorneys has passed rules that say you must be competent in technology. And the reason why they did that is because technology is so pervasive in our society. If you don't understand how data is stored somewhere, it's kind of hard to represent somebody in a lawsuit. So being competent and finding competent help. Then the other piece of that is something that you asked about coding, and I got a chuckle about that when you sent me the email, and I don't think it's coding so much as artificial intelligence, which interestingly enough is available for everybody. It really, truly is. It takes some effort for you to get in there and find the right tools, but Google's out there selling it, IBM's out there selling it, Amazon's out there selling it, these artificial intelligence platforms that can help you speed along some of the research and some of the things that happen in the background so you can be more efficient. So I don't think that attorneys need to code, but certainly know how to leverage artificial intelligence is probably a pretty key element going forward in time.
So are there
Did
any?
you see that one coming?
Well, no. Right. I knew it. Moore's law had told me that it would be an exponential and algorithmic. I don't know. I'm trying to pull words out of a hat. But no, when you're talking about AI, are there companies out there that you have worked with or you have firsthand knowledge? Is there some, like, what's in your toolbox there, Scott?
Well, we are beginning to use AI for some of what we do because there's some things that we do over and over and over again that are just repeatable that we'd rather a machine do.
Right.
I know that the tools are out there for attorneys. If you asked me, I could certainly have a presentation. We could do this again. I could tell you about the tools out there, but there's a wide variety of them, and I haven't looked at them recently. But those big three that I mentioned, IBM, their Watson platform, Google with their artificial intelligence platform, and Amazon Web Services, all three of those companies have applications available for attorneys to use, specifically in the legal field.
Interesting. And so it's interesting because you're talking about tech, but what I'm seeing is time. It just reduces the time on the matter, reduces the time on the research, and then you can get that back. Do you have any stories of how you help somebody sort of free themselves up, or they kind of like had a light bulb moment? Is there a success story from Evidence Solutions specifically?
Well, one that we actually started with in this conversation, I think before we got started maybe, is a case that I'm actually working on today that has to do with data in a case that was a truck driver made a 23-hour trip in 27 hours. And originally we looked at his driver logs and we thought that he had plenty of time to get from pretty much the Canadian border back down to Louisiana, almost in far east Texas. And then we found a Facebook post. And the Facebook post said, well, he's still up in the northern reaches of North Dakota at 7:30 in the morning. And so then we asked for the next piece of that puzzle, which was the cell phone records. And when we got that, we actually said, no, it's not 7:30, it's more like 10 o'clock. So he left the northern reaches of the country up in far North Dakota and traveled all the way back down to East Texas in a very short amount of time with no rest, and likely fatigued, and ran into stopped traffic and hurt some people.
Man,
It's horrible.
and that's just the kind of that's just a day in the life of Scott figuring that out. So if people are working on a truck accident case, or they need some forensics work, or want to talk data, how can people learn more about you, and where can they find you on the internet?
So the name of the company is Evidence Solutions. It's evidencesolutions.com. My personal email address is scott@evidencesolutions.com. And you can check out Evidence Solutions. It also lists all of the other expertises that we have in the company, and it's a wide variety, but they're all very interesting and unusual. And not all of them are unusual. There's certainly trucking experts in the world, but I have a football injury sports and fitness expert. He teaches no-hit football practices. Why? Because that minimizes concussions, and it's just interesting backgrounds on some of these people that I get to work with.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right.
Good. Do it, Paul.
Here we go.
Let's roast him.
Here it goes. 5 questions we ask everyone. Number 1, what was the last book you read?
I'm currently in the 5 Levels of Leadership. John Maxwell, great book, very interesting. I am going to actually turn that into a class for all of my employees. Anybody that wants to participate, I found a guy who has taught it before, and so the 5 Levels of Leadership, I'm going to actually share that with my whole company.
Solid. Number 2, what is your favorite place?
Favorite place? Boy, that's a tough one. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, and I like Tucson a lot. But I certainly like the beach a lot. And so there's some beaches on the mainland in Mexico, but that are on what's called the Sea of Cortez between Baja and Mexico. Little place called Rocky Point. It's a beautiful little town with fabulous beaches. So I like that too.
Nice.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
Well, there's this thing called Lawsome. I've listened to several of those.
Nice. Us too.
Those guys are crap.
Boy, I watch such a wide variety of things. I'm just one of those people that it's not one or two, it's several. I have to think about that. I really just hadn't pondered what other ones to look at. When I go and do research, I'm more one of those guys that here's what I need to know, and then I go out and look for it and find it. So as far as regular blogs, I'm not sure that I have any of those.
Nice. No, that's fine. You find a rabbit hole and fall down it. That's cool.
Yeah. Right.
Number 4, if you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Oh, that's probably pretty good. If I could figure out how to preserve mayo on a desert island, that would be it.
That's an excellent. That's an acceptable answer. All right, last one, number 5. After a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
So I relax and unwind with generally a good bottle of wine and something fun on television or just a really good read. I'm a big reader, and so I can sit back and catch up on some news, or I have some fiction that I like a lot, so I can sit back and sip on some wine and read.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsomepodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawsome.